Maybe state your names for the record.
You get a picture this way and a picture that way.
I'm Linda Siegel.
And I'm Jim Siegel. I had dealt with what most people consider depression, like anybody does. Loss of somebody, that kind of thing. And then it's over with. Mine hit the worst when my dad died. Wasn't able to say goodbye. I was in Sydney picking the boss up from work. And when we got home, there was a message on the answering machine. Yes, kids, that's prior to voicemail or text messages. That your dad's up here in the hospital and he's had a spell. Well, when that was said, I kind of knew there was something really wrong. And we found out that he had a ruptured aortic aneurysm. So basically, by the time they got him loaded into the ambulance and partially to the hospital, he was gone. And that's where mine started to really manifest. But what happened was, not only was it depression, it became bipolar. I was predestined for it anyway. I had, all the genetic makeup to become bipolar. Sometimes it just takes the right trigger to set it off. And that's what happened. And my lowest lows, I don't know if she knows it a lot. Maybe she does some. I would cut. I do have some small scars on my arms where I use a thing you use like to clean your fingernails out.
Yeah.
And I'd use that. And I'd scrape my skin until I'd cut it. My biggest time was I was going to take a walk. And she says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going down Main Street." "You just going down there?" "Well, yeah, kind of." "Well, what you going to do?" "Walk out in front of a truck." She said, "No, you're not." I said, "Yes, I am. Stop me." She did. And within the hour, we were on our way up to Detmer. And that's when I found out about the bipolar. It's been a rocky road dealing with that. As of right now, I can say with the one medication that I'm on for depression, we've pretty much hit a home run. It works very well. For mania, I don't take anything for mania, primarily because when you take something for mania, it dopes you up. And I don't like that feeling. I know that feeling all too well, from drinking for many years. And that's just not a feeling I enjoy anymore. I don't need that high in a way to bring you low. And often what it would do too is it would put me into a much deeper depression. So now I've learned to detect pretty much when mania is going to hit. And I can back off. Sometimes I don't because it just, boom, there it is. And it can be anywhere from where I'm just fidgety, or I could be bouncing off walls, or if here's the funny thing about being bipolar 1, you can have the mania and depression at the same time.
What's that like?
HE double hockey sticks. Because not only do I feel it, but it gets manifest into others around me. And there are times I get very angry.
Mean.
Really mean. Really mean. Not to the point where I am going to physically hurt somebody. Although sometimes I would like to.
I duck it.
No present company not included. But when the mixture is there, it's confusing. And that is the time when my depression becomes really deep. And I just need to get out of the situation. Go someplace, be alone. Just leave me alone. And sometimes I'm very boisterous with that. I'm just leave me the alone. And it may, that part of it may last for a few hours. The mania, I've had it last for maybe 8 or 10 hours or 4 or 5 days. And that's when it really gets crazy. Because
He
I
doesn't
can't
sleep.
I catnap. That's it. I just catnap. So, I might close my eyes and 15 minutes later I'm up and boy, I'm rearing to go again. And it's just go, 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 go. When COVID hit, my go-to place I wasn't able to go to.
Walmart.
Because I'd go to Walmart and I'd just walk around for a couple hours. Because if I could wear my body out, my brain would have to start thinking about rest for my body.
Okay.
And that would help to take me out of it. In the depressive state of bipolar, I wouldn't wish it on anyone. Because it's not a fun situation. And I don't dare, if I miss one dose, that's not going to hurt me. If I miss several doses, look out. Because I'm hitting bottom again. And it's not that I want to go back to old ways. There were times I've wanted to. Just go out, buy some booze, and go sit in the car and just chug a lug. But I haven't done it. Even in the worst of it, I didn't do it.
There was a time that we had a gun that belonged to his grandpa, and there was a time when, before it was detected as to exactly what it was, there was a time when I took the gun out of the house and gave it to my nephew, and he took it, so it wasn't in the house. And I still have the bullets hidden. We never have had the gun brought back. We could now, but it wasn't safe.
And the biggest thing about that is it's just not like a pistol. It's a shotgun. Double barrel. And I know what that can do. I've seen it. And it's not a pretty sight.
It never got that far.
It never got that far. I never wanted to take it that far. They ask me places, well, do you feel like hurting someone else? No. Do you feel like hurting yourself? No. Are you suicidal? No. I have been. My big out now, is music. And it's something, of course, it's always been my out. That's another place I can be. And actually be me. The real me. Not the one that a lot of people think they see. And I try to be now as genuine as I can. Because I feel better. Not that I don't have my times of depression. You can ask her, she'll tell you. Or my times of mania. But it's becoming less and less with the mania. And most of the time with the mania, it's just, I can't stop. My brain doesn't stop. It's running 100 miles an hour. And my body can't stop. I have to be doing something.
That doesn't come real often.
That doesn't come real often. I do a lot more than she may think I do.
When he gets romantic now, he will go upstairs and play drums. And it won't be for a half hour. It'll be an hour, 2 hours. And I'll notice that he's hitting a little harder, playing a little bit different music than what he might, just to get himself going. Wipe out, something like that. Takes a lot.
I can wipe out. When I'm done, I'm
Yeah.
So, anything else help you through your difficult times?
Support, therapy, a lot of therapy. For quite a while in therapy, I journaled. And, when it first started, I saw and heard things. And a lot of people thought, well, man, this guy's schizophrenic. No, it was part of the bipolar. And I could even draw pictures of what it was I saw. And they were like beings. I called them demons. I didn't know what else to call them. We even had names. But I haven't seen or heard anything like that in a lot of years. It's... Maybe I've taken enough knocks to the head here recently. It's knocked some of it out. But I feel better. And being able to come here and be accepted is one thing. That's a big thing. Crowds don't bother me. If I can play in front of 15,000 people, a crowd doesn't bother me. So, I enjoy getting up there. Because not only do I enjoy doing it, but I enjoy what it gives to others. And I see it, I watch it. I see people moving and swaying and clapping hands and all that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, the old guy still got it.
Lynda, would you like to share your stories and struggles you've been through?
Depression is something that I've known and felt for a lot of years, starting as a child. I didn't know back then that my family history has a predisposition for depression. It's not really an inherited thing, it's just that my dad was depressed. I didn't know it. My mother had bouts of it. Mine probably started as a child because of child abuse. I had lots of child abuse whenever I was a kid, clear up through my teenage years. And then I had domestic violence as an adult. So that tends to make you feel like you don't matter. You're not important. My mother used to, and she did until the day she died, said I was her mistake. I was the firstborn. She got married because she was pregnant. She was 15 years old. And I was her mistake. And most of the time, I could handle it. When I was a kid, I didn't really comprehend all what it was. As an adult, most of the time, I could handle it. But there were times when she would kind of take that thumb and just push it in. And, you're my mistake. The boys were planned. And we never really got along. I tried. But you can only try so much. So when you hear that all the time, it's hard to accept yourself. And then the different abuses I suffered. As a child, I had a couple stepfathers that abused me, as well as some others. And then when I was married the first time, Daniel abused me. I didn't think it was till we were married 15, 16 years. But looking back, it actually started the second year we were married. And we were married 17 and a half years. So, and he did things like he would get a second vehicle, so I would have a vehicle. But he would get something that wasn't going to run very long, and it would quit running, and he wouldn't fix it. So he isolated me. One of the worst things you can have with depression is isolation. So I couldn't really go anywhere. And so I got to the point where I didn't really want to go anywhere. I took advantage of the isolation and, more or less stayed by myself, I had a couple people that I would talk to that were friends. Otherwise, I didn't go out and mix with people. I finally, when I started getting some therapy, and I was fortunate to get a Christian therapist. At first I didn't, but then I have a Christian therapist, and it makes a whole heck of a lot of difference when you go in there and you just don't know what to do, and you've got a therapist that'll pray with you. and I started journaling. I've journaled for 10 years now. So I have enough for a book, and people keep telling me to go ahead and write this book. Well, I've got a few chapters, but I still deal with it. I take medication. I see a therapist fairly regularly whenever I can get into it. I still isolate to a point. I have illness now, and some of my illnesses I know were brought on because of depression. With depression, you can eat too much, eat too little. Well, my thing is I eat too much, and it's not healthy food. It's the comfort foods, that are good, not good for you, but they taste so good. They make you feel so good. I also did a lot of self-injuring. Not that you can see most of it. I did it where you can see it. What I have on me, I have this. But this was done to me as a child abuse. And for a long time, I always wore long sleeves. And then I realized I didn't do anything wrong. And I don't announce it to everybody, but if someone asks, I'm willing to admit that I didn't do it, that it came from child abuse. A lot of people didn't see it for a long time because I have psoriasis, and hey, psoriasis hides a lot of things when you need to. But I still deal with it, sometimes on a daily basis. There are times when Jim gets upset with me because I don't feel well. Part of it's the depression that starts working on physical things where my heart will act up, which causes an anxiety attack, which I hate, but I have. Panic attacks and anxiety attacks. And I would just stay in bed upstairs all day. I got a bathroom across the hall. I don't have to go downstairs because the stairs are treacherous for me and painful. If I go down, I have to go back up because the bed's upstairs. So I will stay upstairs. I have a TV, but I very seldom turn it on. Maybe in the evening. I sleep. I read. I journal. Sometimes I have found that when I'm down and I need something to keep me physically, my hands busy, so that I don't go back into that old behavior of hurting myself or wanting to hurt myself or looking for something to hurt myself with. I go into Psalms because you can always find something in the book of Psalms to help you when you're down, something for comfort. And I'll read it, and I may read it from a couple of different versions of the Bible, and then I sit and put it in my own words. It may be prose, it may be poetry, but I have several, and I go back to those and look them up. And I do write poetry when I'm depressed. My best poetry comes from being depressed, unfortunately. Some of it's really good, but, well, why aren't you writing anymore? Well, I'm not depressed enough. And my dad was depressed. My mother had depression. My dad would go into the hospital on the weekends. And I'd go to my grams, and my brothers would go to my grandma and granddad, and he'd go in on Friday night and come out on Sunday because he couldn't sleep. And I didn't know what was going on until I was an adult. His came from being in Korea, and he'd been there 5 days and got hit with mortar attack in the back in his neck. If he wouldn't have had his helmet on, he would have died. But he was 20 years old over in Korea and got hit, and I think his depression just exacerbated from then. And he was able to talk about it, later. For a long time, I don't want to talk about it either. And people, I think, well, what's wrong with them? They're just being snooty or antisocial. You hear all those kinds of things. And sometimes if you just dig a little deeper, if you really want to know what's going on with that person, or you really want to help that person, well, you ask the right questions. Well, what's going on? How about if we go get a cup of coffee and we just sit and talk? Sometimes just getting them out of even the sanctuary. You get them out of there. And then you can find out what's really going on, because depression is, like he said, depression can be hell because you don't want to ask for help. The best thing you can do is ask for help.
No, because you feel weak if you ask for help.
Yeah.
Because you're looked at in such a way, like she said. People look at you, well, you're being snooty or something. And it's not that at all. It's just you're in a box, so to speak. And you can be in a room full of people and still be alone.
Oh, yeah. I have that sometimes when I come here. I don't get here regularly. A lot of it's my health. But even when I do come sometimes, I just feel like I'm alone and there's all these people around me and people don't see me. I don't want everybody to come and say, "Hi, Linda, how you doing?" But, it's probably more me than it is the people. But I just feel like, I want to find a hole, dig a hole, crawl in it, and pull the dirt around me. And just everybody, kind of leave me alone.
I've been there many times.
And you have to force yourself. I have learned some of the cooking, the writing, and sometimes I'd have to take that time to not necessarily get away, just take a deep breath and know that it's okay and it will pass. And I will sit and pray, God, we've been through this before. You're the only one that's going to get me through this, so I need your help now. What can you show me to do that's going to help me? And it may be writing. I color. It's not always those adult coloring books either. I color. And it's amazing some of the trainings that I have done where I was working as a social worker. I will start out with some parents, and I'll bring coloring books and crayons and say, "Here, I want you to color." They all think I'm nuts, but coloring, that continuous movement, picking out your own colors, a picture, it is relaxing. And I have coloring books upstairs, downstairs, colored pencils upstairs, downstairs, so that I can do that.
Doing things like that is empowering to yourself. It sometimes is the one thing you have to do with depression. Is you have to get past that woe is me and get to that point where you're actually doing something different. And, well, last Christmas she got me a Mandalorian. They're coloring sheets. And, if I really need to do something other than play, especially if it's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Neighbors get a little upset.
Yeah. I can do things like that. If I'm by myself downstairs and I just want to release myself from the world, I'll pop in a movie. Because it's just like being at the theater. The floor shakes and all that. It's like, this is cool. Then I relax.
I find that when I've talked, it can be one person. And it can be my therapist. It can be you. A lot of times after you come to the house and visit, I feel better. Because at some point during that time, I probably said something that was bothering me or that I was stewing on, and it helps. Once you can start regularly admit your depression, not to the whole world like we're doing now on this camera, but one person, and that person understands, and they will accept you in the good and the bad and the crying and the screaming and yelling and I hate you or I'm not talking to you, all the drama. You get one person, and then you can get two people. And as long as you realize that you've got people out there, and you can always go back to them, one or the other of somebody, that helps you continue to accept that depression is just something you have. Depression is a physiological disorder in the brain that can exacerbate itself physically in all kinds of things. Heart attacks and strokes and eating disorders, and it go on and on. But you feel like you're empowered when you can share it with someone and let them know that I have it, and they may say, "Oh, well, I've had that back at this time when I was like this." So it is empowering. It can be horrible, but it can be empowering too.
And I've found too, not so much for myself, but for my dear wife here, that things that have happened in the past, not so much happened, but have been said in the past, some people have taken it as gospel. And there's that underlying treatment. They may not even be fully aware of it, but there's that underlying treatment of, well, yeah, I was told this by, and it must be so. That becomes depressing. That actually, not being able to be included. Now, I'm not talking like a little clique, but, in a general population like here at the church, to have people think, well, this one said that and this one said that, and, well, it has to be true. It doesn't have to be true. You know, this thing right here, this wheelchair, I wish you didn't have to have it. Number one, it's a pain in the neck to load and unload. But number two, there are a lot of things that we can't do. We can't go take a walk and hold hands and all that kind of thing. There was a while that we could. And I miss that kind of stuff.
We could if I had my electric chair back to running. I mean, it's running. I just don't have a way to haul it. No ramp or...
No vehicle to put
That's
it in.
true. I have to agree with what he says. People have said things in the past, and all it takes is one person to spread that, and somebody else to spread it, and you can have a dozen people that have heard it in some form, and yeah, it must be true because I heard it from different people. And it's terrible to say, but my mother did some of that as a member of the church here. There were times whenever she was not a nice person sometimes. I mean, she would scream and yell at my aunt, who was her sister, at a double circle meeting at her house. So there were things that she would say, and that definitely weren't true, but people begin to believe them. And there's no sense in arguing and saying that's not true. It doesn't matter what she said. It was about me. It was something I supposedly did or didn't do. No. You just have to let it go. Or try to. Yeah.
And especially when some people took it as gospel because, like so many things, you hear it so many times, you believe it.
But he brought up a good point. This chair and being not disabled, otherwise able. I just do things differently. I can do a lot of what other people do. I just do it, different. I can move furniture. I just put my legs up or take my chair and push, But it can cause you to be really down. You see other people out running, playing baseball, or I used to like to play basketball or badminton. It's so hard to do that nowadays. So there's times whenever that can just cause it. Or people that say, well, there's no reason for her to be in that chair. Well, yeah, there were times when I can walk. I can barely walk now. I use my walker, and I still do at home sometimes. But there's times that I can hardly take one step. And it's like, why would I want to be in this chair? And it's like, and you can go on and be depressed about it, or you can say, okay, it's their problem, it's not my problem. They've got to come to the realization. Or else you're going to be so deep in depression, you're going to think, woe is me. I'm just going to sit in my chair at home in my little corner and ignore everybody. You can't do it.
Yeah, you cannot become a hermit if you have depression. You want to, but you can't. Because the first time you do that, that's when you're giving into it and it's going to win. And either you're going to be so depressed for so long that you just don't care, or you're going to wind up a statistic that they bury.
Thank you for sharing your story.
I am Jim, and I do feel like an overcomer.
Okay.
Because I can't say I've 100% beaten it because I never will. The day I beat it is the day I'm planted in the ground. That's going to be the day I beat it.
I'm Lynda, and I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of depression and abuse, and I'm learning to be more than a survivor. You shouldn't be a survivor, but I'm learning to be more than a survivor. And that may be when I become an overcomer. I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I am a survivor now. I'm not a victim. And that's a lot. That's a big step. Not a big step, it's a lot of baby steps. So at some point I'll probably very easily be able to say, I'm an overcomer. But for now, I'm a survivor and working on it.
It's a day-by-day situation.